everyone, and welcome to the Discovery Center of Idaho and our very first virtual Ask the Expert interview. My name is Emily Mahon, and I work here at the Discovery Center of Idaho as Education Director. I'm here with Jan Summers Duffy, archaeologist, curator, and Egyptologist currently at the College of Idaho. Jan and I will be having an extended conversation on multiple topics that intersect with our current exhibition on display at the Discovery Center, King Tut, Treasures of the Tomb. Before we get started on our interview, I want to briefly set the stage with a little background on how we arrived at this event. The Discovery Center of Idaho is a hands-on science center with a 30-year history of providing quality education to the Treasure Valley of Idaho, with the mission to inspire lifelong interest in learning in science, technology, engineering, and math. Like so many other museums and science centers, in the spring of 2020, we were forced to shut our doors for a short time before reopening in July with our current exhibition. We feel so blessed to have already had this exhibition, which has a no-touch cultural natural history-driven exhibition on our calendar to open in May. So instead of having to come up with something new, we were able to instead adjust the space to hold an expanded version of this exhibition in the place of our hands-on exhibits that we have since placed into storage for the time being. We are very proud to have created a safe place for our visitors to learn and be inspired by the STEM learning gleaned from the exhibition experience in King Tut. I feel doubly blessed that during our research for our educator resource guide, to have found Jan Summers Duffy, an Egyptologist with a specific expertise in King Tut, living right here in Boise, Idaho. I immediately reached out to her for help in amplifying the excellence and quality of the educational content that we could produce for our community. She has been enormously generous with her expertise and her time, and is a regular fixture here on Friday afternoons for our Ask the Expert hour. Welcome, Jan. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our question. The first one is, tell me about what having an exhibition like this in Boise means to you as an archaeologist and an Egyptologist, having studied all about King Tut and all of the amazing treasures in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt.
Well, it means a lot to me because, first of all, the science of Egyptology has finally come to Idaho. Being from the Northeast and traveling throughout the United States and to Egypt and other countries and visiting other museums, seeing the original artifacts, when this was proposed to me, it was one of the best things that's happened in a long time. And in my years with the College of Idaho, I first brought an Egyptology exhibit there for the students to study, and things just kind of blew up after that. And then I knew that Egyptology was here, and then when this exhibit came and I heard from the Discovery Center, that was even better.
Well, it was such an amazing joy to find someone local that had an actual expertise in King Tut. I know, I was looking all over, I was calling out to Seattle, I was looking all over the place, and thankfully.
And right here.
And then right here in our own backyard, here you were.
Yeah, well, it means a lot to me because I've studied it most of my life. I've been in the tomb more than 5 times, and recently saw his mummy in the tomb, which a lot of people have, asked about. And it's just an amazing experience, and I believe that the Discovery Center has done a fantastic job of showing most of the important artifacts, and even some of the lesser ones as well.
Thank you so much. It makes us feel great knowing that we're making you happy, Dan.
Yeah.
So my next question is, why did Howard Carter's unearthing of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 have so much significance then? And why do you think it still has such significance 100 years later?
Yes, well, back in 1922 and now, I believe it's the only almost intact tomb that was discovered. It also helped for antiquity laws to be enforced, which there was none in 1922. And now artifacts can be protected, and no one can go and just start to dig in the Valley of the Kings or anywhere in Egypt. You need a permit, and special restrictions required. It also, discovering a royal tomb has enabled us to see how the ancient Egyptians lived, what sciences they used, and many things that we had no idea about. And that includes especially art. If you look at the art of the tomb, it's just fantastic. And
so is this something that King Tut was King Tut's tomb found? Where was it in relation to some of the other findings that had already been found there?
Right. Well, it is in the Valley of the Kings, which is Luxor, and the tomb of Ramses IV actually sits above the tomb, and that was excavated many years before Tuts was even discovered. And what had happened was, when they excavated Ramses IV's tomb, which is KV2, all of the fill and debris covered up Tut for the entire time, over 3,000 years, until Howard Carter found it.
That's fantastic. That's fascinating.
Yes.
So when Howard Carter opened up the tomb of King Tut, was he the first human to have set eyes on it in 3,000 years?
Yes, he was. He had been searching for the tomb for about 12 years, and he had some indication that the tomb was there by various artifacts that were found in the sand and a few other things that were going on. And he persevered and finally got the financial backing from Lord Carnarvon of Highclere Castle, and continued his excavation. And finally, on November 4th, 1922, they found the first step.
Wow, that's fascinating. So it took him a while. So he had already had indicators that there was something underneath the tomb of Ramses IV, and they spent years pulling all of that.
Yes, indications, but he wasn't sure until they really, got all the debris uncovered.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that the finding of the tomb?
Well, I think that if anyone has read Howard Carter's book, and I think, or anything's on KV62, and I'll just say here, KV is Kings Valley, and there are now 63 tombs in the Valley of the Kings. I was actually part of 63, but 62 was the first one that was ever uncovered. And I believe that most people don't realize that, we refer to it as KV6, KV2, but really the Tomb of Tutankhamun, KV62.
Oh, okay.
So numbering was started by Sir Alan Gardner.
Okay, and that goes from like the number of the first one that was found to the last one that was found?
Yes, when they first started to number them so they could keep track of the tombs.
So it's really been almost 100 years since we found many new tombs. King Tut's kind of the last major tomb that we found.
Well, it is the last major one. The KV63, which was won by the late Dr. Otto Schadin, is right across the causeway from KV62. We think it may be related in some respect, although not much was found in it. But yes, it was given the designation as KV63. But you're right about KV62 being the only intact royal tomb that was found.
So being intact, one of the things that when we talk to visitors who come through the exhibit, where we talk to them about why this is so important, and one of the things that stands out is that we say so many of the other tombs that had been found prior to that had been raided, and people had come in and taken all this beautiful gold.
That's right.
And so this one was the first one where all that gold was there. It was shining from inside of the tomb when you saw it.
Well, most people do realize the tomb was actually violated twice, but it was resealed probably by the priests of that era. And I'm sure a few things were taken and then put on the antiquities market, but luckily they did not make it to the door of the treasury, which was where Tut's body lie, the canopic chest, and some of the other really important finds that help us define and know about the religion of the ancient Egyptians.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for taking me down that rabbit hole, all those different questions. So you recently published an article in June on the Guardians of the Tomb in the Nile magazine, which is a huge honor. And it was a perfect timing for us in our opening in July. Could you share some more about the significance of these two statues and some attributes or images our visitors might look for when they visit?
Right. Well, first of all, I'll say that the main idea for the ancient Egyptians was to guard the royal tomb, and it was based around secrecy and security. So the two guardian statues are supposed to be in the likeness of Tut or his Ka, which to us would be your soul. And both of them are significant in several ways. I have a couple theories and a proposal about there is a kilt that's tied onto the front of each one, and they're holding a baton and a staff. And I believe that the baton was used to beat the drum in the funerary procession of King Tut, because the hieroglyphics more or less say that on the front. Each one is wearing a different headdress, but I think that that's just relevant to show the different Upper and Lower Egypt.
Oh, okay.
And the other important thing is, not my discovery, of course, but another top Egyptologist has done some research and found that in other statues, they have actually found religious papyrus up under the kilt of other statues. Now, this would be for secrecy, because what you're doing is, it's a warning or a spell saying, do not, violate this tomb. But nothing was found under the two guardian statues, but that's not to say that something wasn't there maybe at one time.
Oh, right.
Or it could have disintegrated. I mean, both statues, most people don't know, had a very fine linen shawl over them, like many objects did, and that's done for secrecy and to cover. Cover and secrecy were very important. But those shawls were in tatters and almost to dust. So if you look at any photo, you will probably not see them because they were mostly disintegrated.
Yeah, I've noticed some of those shawls, I think, on the
Shopties, they're on these Shopties. They also were on Anubis, which to show how important that he was as the god of the dead, because that's all having to do with the burial.
Oh, fascinating. Going to a question that I think a lot of people are interested in, because we are able to see so many documentaries and so many different YouTube videos about King Tut and all of these. What are some of your favorite myths that you like to bust about King Tut?
There's probably several, and I would say the one is King Tut's death. He was not murdered. I think it's pretty well been proven. Zai Hawass did a complete physical and DNA in 2010 with the team of Tut's body, and they have found that he had severe malaria. He was also a young person, and he also had a very serious foot injury. And we see that's kind of indicated by about 40 staffs and canes were found in his tomb. And we also see images of him in the tomb leaning on the canes. So I would say that most likely the severe malaria, the infected leg wound, which could have been from an accident, or even some say a hippo accident if he was on the Nile River, would have definitely caused his death. But nothing has ever been absolutely decided that he was murdered.
Interesting. What about the I hear a lot about the curse of the tomb.
Yeah, well, the curse, I mean, if you want to believe in the curse, I think that it's valid because there's many spells in the tomb, and they're written on the canopic chest and other places that say, do not violate this tomb or you will be dealt with swiftly. So I think that was good for tomb robbers, and it managed to keep some out, but of course not all of them.
What's interesting about because that's the kind of the myth that so many people talk about. What I've noticed in pop culture when it comes to mummies and the story of the mummy, it's all so much comes back to this finding in 1922 of King Tut's tomb,
Right.
and the curse that was said to have been surrounding that. So, what's some of the evidence that people were pointing to when they were saying, no, there's definitely a curse of the
Right.
tomb?
Well, I think the first thing that came up that may have helped the curse was that Lord Carnarvon died about, I think, 9 months after the tomb was open, and that was because he got a mosquito bite on his face and it got infected. And people right away started to, I guess, say some rumors, and the journalists just took that and flew with it and probably created the myth from there.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Howard Carter and others from the tomb, of course, died naturally, but it was about 16 years before Carter actually was deceased, and he was the one that actually found and touched the mummy. So if you want to believe in a curse, I guess
That
it could for some reason. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. So do you have a favorite piece besides the Guardians from the tomb that still gives you goosebumps when you think about it or when you see it?
Yes, I believe there's many things in the exhibit that really do that for me, but one of the main things is the canopic chest.
Mm.
The gold canopic chest actually had another alabaster chest inside of it, and inside of that were the internal organs of King Tut. Now, King Tut could not be resurrected unless these internal organs were protected. And the second thing that I love are the 4 goddesses that protected that canopic chest, because each one of them had their arms outspread and they were looking out towards the door so that no one would enter and disturb. And the main idea was, of course, the afterlife. King Tut needed to be resurrected into the afterlife so that he can enjoy the next life.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, I would say, my favorites, the canopic chest and the guardians.
Yeah, I agree. And we've had so many fun instances, especially with kids coming through this exhibit and looking closely at all the different pieces. And one of the stories that I like to tell is of a little girl who was looking at those guardians, and someone asked her, like, what do you think they're doing? She said, well, they're clearly looking behind them and making sure that people aren't going to take anything, because that's what I would do if I were standing like that.
Right.
So even just the way that it's presented is so clear and tells such a beautiful story.
It is beautiful. I believe that Howard Carter had said even he was just taken aback when the door was open and he saw the first goddess, because they're dressed in sheer linen and they're so serene looking, and each one protected a different internal organ. So I think that the artistic ability of many things from the tomb is almost unbelievable, that we really have to consider, how beautiful the art is.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yes, it's not only science and anthropology and archaeology and Egyptology, it's science, it's math, it's medicine, it's many things.
It's geology, it's all the materials that they were using.
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm. I think when I think of the art that's been found in this, we look at the mask and we see that just all of this lapis lazuli and the turquoise and the gold and all these different beautiful minerals that had been mined and used from all over the ancient world, really highlighting how many different trade routes there were and just the beautiful artistry that these people
Absolutely.
My next question for you is, what are some of your favorite did you know or hidden Easter eggs you'd like to share with people about King Tut or the object from the tomb that make you want to go, wow?
Okay, well, there are several, but probably to me the most important one, and the one people are surprised about, is that there was not just Tut in the tomb. He had 2 infant daughters that were buried with him in very small boxes, one 5 months and one 3 months. There's a possibility they could have been twins, but we don't know that for sure. The DNA has been performed on them, so we know for sure that they're Tut's female children. And they are presently in the Cairo Museum, and you probably will not see them on exhibit.
Are they just because they're so,
They're very tiny, probably like as big as your hand, maybe, or as long as your hand, and extremely fragile, of course.
why do you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, because I didn't give you this one. Why do you think they buried his infant daughters with him?
Well, that's a good question, and hopefully we're going to find out a lot more answers about this too. We are still trying to identify, even though we have the mummy, of who his mother is. So the fact that Tut is in the tomb with his two daughters could very well say that the mother's nearby. So that's something, to think of right now, think about, and will probably keep us researching for another 20 years.
Well, it keeps you going, right? There's always another mystery to solve.
There is, and every one that we do have to solve provides a research topic for someone that just keeps them going like it has for myself. So.
Are there any other hidden Easter eggs, or did you know things that...
Well, the two daggers that were found, some people know and others don't. There's not a lot of information that's written about them, but both daggers are designed with encrusted jewels and very decorative handles and knife blades, and one is said to be from a meteorite material. And that has pretty well been proven that it is meteorite material, maybe from the Cargo Oasis, which I believe is a western desert in south of Cairo. That's another curiosity that we know.
And do you think that they, because I'm sure that the meteor, and this is a question you might not know, but I'm sure the meteor had hit, even centuries before they were there. And so did they know that it was meteorite, or do you think that they just thought it was really special rock?
Well, I mean, you're right. It could have hit even millions of years ago. And perhaps they were looking or on an expedition to find some materials to use for jewelry or, any tomb artifacts, and came across it and probably did not realize it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure that we've provided more meaning onto it from our own perspective of knowing, having dated things in a new way in our 21st century.
Right. And just one other note on the knives. The one was actually found in the sarcophagus on the right side by the hip bone of King Tut.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I'm loving all of this. My final question for you today, and I want us to do this again another time because we have so many more things that I want to ask you, Jan. As we keep talking through this, the more I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so many more things that we can talk about. But my final question for you is, as an archaeologist, as a female archaeologist, as an Egyptologist, what's something you'd like to say to young people interested in pursuing a career in archaeology?
Well, a lot of young people have come through this exhibit, and I have talked to them about that, and I would say that many are interested in archaeology, anthropology, and ask how would they get to be an Egyptologist? Well, first of all, you have to have a very keen interest and a desire, like I have since I was a young girl, and I knew that I was going to pursue this no matter what, and I did. But you have to also, I believe, have some research skills, a keen interest in science, history, and go forth in your education completely. And if you're lucky during your education, you can probably go on a mission or a dig and get the best experience. And that's actually what happened with me. I got my experience through Penn State excavation program. And I worked with a top Egyptologist, and I would say that I learned a lot from there. And then I got opportunities offered to me from that particular mission. So I would say that you have to keep at it and just persevere if something you love to do.
Yeah, and it seems like there's so many resources out there that people can look at. We've got RC, the American Research Center of Egypt, which is a great international community of Egyptologists and archaeologists, the American Institute of Archaeologists, the
Exactly.
AAA. There's so many places and different museums and setups throughout the United States and internationally that have archaeologists speaking on a regular basis. And
That's true. I would also mention probably one of the top places is the Griffith Institute in Oxford University in England. They have provided probably a lot of my research information and material, and also many of the photos that are in this King Tut exhibit, and also the screens that you're using in here, which are just invaluable. They're black and white photos, but they were taken at the time the tomb was discovered. And they have, at the Griffith Institute, all of the handwritten cards that Howard Carter did when he excavated the tomb. So he wrote everything by hand. He conserved everything in as minimal ways as he could. But because he did that, we're able to see the artifacts today.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I still think it's fascinating that he was really an artist.
Yes, he was. And if you've ever seen any of his watercolors, he's a fabulous artist.
Oh, fantastic. He and Winston Churchill.
Yes, and I believe at Oxford they do have some of Howard Carter's artwork too. So he was not an archaeologist per se, as you said, but multi-talented for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So we've not included a Q&A with this video. However, we do ask you to share your questions for Jan using a link provided on the web page or with the YouTube video. You can write your questions or even email us a video question that Jan will answer with a video answer. Make sure you send us your contact information so that Jan can send you her answer. Also, please make sure to visit us at dcidaho.org and check out our DCI at Home resources to read all of our King Tut blogs and videos and explore all the resources available in our Educator Resource Guide. And of course, make sure to come on down to the Discovery Center of Idaho to experience this fantastic exhibition. And if you're here on a Friday between 12:30 and 2:30, you'll get your own chance to interview Jan and learn all about King Tut and this amazing exhibition. Thank you so much for being with us, Jan. Thank you for joining us.